coming off its second straight disappointing loss to a top 10 opponent. BYU now getting ready to go out on the road. The BYU football team on the road to take on Georgia Tech this weekend. I'm Jared Lloyd, sports editor for the Daily Herald, here with Tal Steves from Total Blue Sports. And Tal, how tough is it going to be for BYU to bounce back from kind of not being able to close out the deal against Notre Dame?
Well, it was a game, nobody had expectation BYU was going to actually go into South Bend and actually win that game. But then when BYU was actually competing in that game and actually had a chance to win, and then in the very end wasn't able to do so, really tore the heart out of, I think, this team. And so going back on the road twice back east after a loss like that, it would have to be tough for anybody. But as competitors, as a team and players that want to play football, they're going to be up for it. They want to go out and they want to play. And I think there's a little sense of redemption. They want to go out and they want to play. And that's the sense that I'm getting from a lot of these players here at BYU.
Well, this is a team that hasn't been able to close out the deal before this year. You know, only the Utah State game were they really able to, win late in the game. And so, I think what BYU is looking for now is a game, maybe a little bit better opportunity to maybe take control. And let's be honest, Georgia Tech, they come in with the triple option, which is difficult to defend,
very, very tough.
But they haven't had the year that they wanted to have either. They're sitting at 3-4. BYU's at 4-4. So this is kind of a, this might be a kind of a game that both teams are going to struggle.
Yeah. And of course, sure. And then you throw in the fact that Georgia Tech just fired their defensive coordinator a couple of weeks ago. So from a defensive standpoint, Georgia Tech might not look to do anything fancy, but go more towards a base defense just because they don't have time to implement anything new from the new defensive coordinator. So with that being the case, I don't think BYU is going to expect anything too fancy defensively coming from Georgia Tech. So it'll be a game in which I think it'll probably be one that both teams want to look to come out and try to prove themselves that, hey, we can set things up at least from this point out and try to finish out the rest of the season on a strong note.
Before the season began, everyone pointed to this game as being, one of the four real tough ones that BYU had, a back-to-back, coming off the Notre Dame trip, now going back to Atlanta to take on the Yellow Jackets. Now it doesn't look quite as intimidating, but you and I were talking just a minute ago about how important the safety play is going to be against this triple option. Georgia Tech still has a really good quarterback. They put a lot of points on the board.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing, too, is when everything in a 4-3-4 defense that BYU runs, they want to funnel everything towards that cat safety. It's imperative that BYU doesn't get dirty eyes, which means you got these safeties and cornerbacks looking in the backfield, who the pitchman, but maintain get their keys early and maintain discipline and make sure that they have sound fundamentals. Tackling is imperative from the safety position at BYU against a triple option.
And I think after watching what BYU did against Notre Dame and kind of the struggles tackling, I really think they got a gang tackle. They got to hold on to guys long enough for everybody else to get there. They weren't able to do that against Notre Dame. One guy would get there, he'd make an impact, the running back would bounce off, and nobody else was there to finish off the tackle. Against this Georgia Tech team, this defense needs to be able to do that, or they're going to give up a lot of yards on the ground once again.
Well, yeah, the thing about what Notre Dame did, Notre Dame definitely, a lot of the big runs that came from Notre Dame weren't actually designed run plays. They were cut back in angles. Again, it comes down to funneling things towards the safety and sound fundamentals. And once those things break down, or the communication breaks down, or those angles break down, then those cutbacks are there. And so it's more paramount in facing a triple option that those things are maintained, that you maintain your lanes and maintain sound tackles and maintain your discipline, get your keys early, and make sure that you maintain those fundamentals. And if you do that, then you can wrap up those. BYU's been successful against triple option before, against Air Force. So it's nothing new to these defensive coaches. But again, if you're not providing sound cutback lanes and against funding that towards that defense and those safeties, and of course if you can't tackle on top of it, it's going to cause a lot of problems that we saw South Bend this past Saturday.
Well, we've seen some good things from the BYU offense. Looking at the other side of the ball, last couple of weeks they scored the first offensive touchdown Notre Dame had allowed in a while. They had some good drives that they weren't able to close out on. This Georgia Tech defense, just from what we've seen so far this year, isn't on the same level as some of the other defenses BYU's played. So the offense seems to be getting better, and they're playing a defense. I wouldn't put them necessarily – Hawaii has a long way to go. I wouldn't put Georgia Tech in that category. But Riley Nelson, they need to make those plays. They need to get some big chunks. He talked about that after the Notre Dame game. I think that's going to be key for this offense this week.
I think you're right. There will be opportunities for BYU's for offense to do some things here. Again, it's going to be whether or not they're Riley can get the ball to those guys. Of course, losing Braden Hance at the center position, you bring in Blair Tuchel, so you essentially got three starters in the middle once again. First season starters once again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, it's going to come down to how well BYU executes on offense. They did very well against a fifth-ranked Notre Dame with one of the best linebackers in Manti Te'o in the middle. So with that being said, I don't think Georgia Tech's defense is going to be as sound or strong. Not going to be able to rotate as many guys as Notre Dame did, not be as fresh as they did. With a new defensive coordinator, a lot of good things lining up for BYU's offense at a time in which they're actually showing some success.
So that'll be the key, in my opinion. The offense has got to make plays. Defense has to tackle. It's really that simple this week, I think. So BYU at Georgia Tech. It's a 1 p.m. game. It's going to be on Root Sports here in Utah. I'm going to be there in Atlanta checking out and seeing how BYU bounces back from a disappointing loss. Tyler Steves, Total Blue Sports, check out his stuff there. Thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing how BYU comes out against the Yellow Jackets.